Shanti, children. It's lovely to welcome you in this session of your English class today. Children, today I want to talk about something very strange. Although not strange, yet it is very much heard. It's about fear. Have you ever experienced fear in your life? Yes, I think you'll answer yes, ma'am, we have experienced many a times. Yes, everyone experiences once or twice any kind of fear in his or her life. Like you can take examples. Fear of height, fear of darkness, fear of being alone, fear of water, fear of water. Many of the students have experienced many a times. Fear seems to be a constant companion for most of us these days. It becomes so part and parcel of our lives that without fear, life would seem a very strange indeed. Yet, when it comes, it creates the havoc of anxiety, sabotaging our joys, our happiness, our enthusiasm, our creation, our creativity, our determination, what not. And resulting in poor performances, enthusiasm gone, and so a plethora of health issues can also be experienced. It's like a child who thinks that there is a goblin behind the curtain. But when the light is turned on, he sees that the goblin is really a teddy bear. But then, fear is paralyzing. Why it is paralyzing? Because it resides in the subconscious mind. It might have been experienced or the information has been taken once in the past with a conscious mind, and now also it is being processed. Information is there at the present moment also. Why? It is because subconscious mind in fact is operating it silently behind the curtain, behind the scene. Now what is required? Do we want to break the cycle of this fear? How will it be broken? It can be broken with the help of our conscious mind. Consciously only it can be broken. So that subconscious mind will now learn not to fear. And then you will find that mind will be tuned properly and you'll get tremendous power within yourself and success will be possible. So let's know a first-person narration of personal experience of the narrator William O.Douglas and his account of the steps taken to overcome it. William O.Douglas recalls a misadventure of his childhood. It had happened when he was 10 or 11 years old. He had decided to learn to swim. There was a pool at the YMCA in Yakima, which was safe. It was only 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow end and 9 feet deep at the other. The drop was gradual. He got a pair of water wings and went to the pool. He hated to walk naked into water and show his very thin legs. The author had developed an aversion to the water when he was 3 or 4. His father had taken him to the beach in California. They stood together on the surf. The waves knocked him down and swept over him. He was buried under water. His breath was gone. He was frightened. His father laughed. But the overpowering force of the waves filled terror in the young author's heart. Unpleasant memories were revived When he went to the YMCA pool for the first time, childish fears were stirred, but soon he gathered confidence. He watched other boys paddling on water with their water wings. So he tried to learn by imitating them. He did this 2 or 3 times on different days. He was just beginning to feel comfortable in the water when the misadventure happened. When he went to the pool, there was no one else. So he sat on the side of the pool to wait for others. Shortly afterwards, a big boy, a boxer, came. He was probably 18 years old and had beautiful muscles on his legs and arms. He called the author, "Hey, Skinny," and asked how he would like to be plunged in water. The boxer, who picked Douglas and threw him into the deep end, he struck water in a sitting position. He swallowed water and at once went to the bottom. He was frightened, but did not lose his wits. He made a plan. He would make a big jump when his feet hit the bottom. He would come to the surface like a cock, lie flat on it, and then paddle to the edge of the pool. But those 9 feet appeared more than 90. Before he touched bottom, his lungs were ready to burst. When his feet hit the bottom, he made a great jump upwards, but he failed to reach the surface at once. He came up slowly. His eyes and nose came out of water, but not his mouth. He moved around his legs on the surface of water. He swallowed water and choked. He tried to bring his legs up, but they hung as dead weights. He again went down to the bottom of the pool, but he was shrieking underwater because terror had seized him. He was paralyzed underwater, but his heart and the pounding in the head told him that he was still alive. And when he hit the bottom, he jumped with his full might. The jump but made no difference. The water was still around him. His arms and legs would not move. He trembled with fear. He tried to call for help, to call Mother, but nothing happened. Then he rose up. His eyes and nose were almost out of the water. He sucked for air and got water. He started going down a third time. Then all efforts ended and he relaxed. A blackness swept over his brain and wiped out terror. Now there was no more panic. He felt drowsy and wanted to sleep. He gave all the attempts up. He forgot everything. When he came to his senses, he found himself lying on his stomach beside the pool, vomiting. The boy who had thrown him in said, "I was only fooling." Someone said that the kid had nearly died. Then they took him to the locker room. He walked home after several hours. He was weak and trembling. He shook and cried when he lay on his bed. He couldn't eat that night. For days a haunting fear was in his heart. He never went back to the pool. He feared water and avoided it whenever he could. A few years later, he came to know the waters of the Cascades. He wanted to get into them, But whenever he did so, the terror that had seized him in the pool returned. His legs would become paralyzed, and icy horror would grab his heart. This handicap remained with him even as time passed. Wherever he went, the haunting fear of water followed him. It ruined his fishing trips. It deprived him of the joy of canoeing, boating, and swimming. He used every method he knew to overcome his fear. Finally, he decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. He went to a pool and practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. The instructor put a belt around him. He attached a rope to the belt, and then he asked him to have practice. After 3 months, his tension began to slack, and then he started being bolder. And as per the instructions of the instructor, he repeated the exercise hundreds of times, and very slowly he shed some of the old panic as his head went under water. And then a day, the instructor asked the otter to dive off and swim the length of the pool. He began with the different strokes taught by the instructor. Especially the crawl stroke was the beginning. When he swam alone in the pool, tiny remnants of the old terror would return. But now he could rebuke his terror. This went on till July. He was still not satisfied. So he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire. He asked the terror whenever he felt like terror coming. He asked the terror what it could do to him, and if it fled away. Some doubts still remained. So he went up the Titan to Corrad Meadows and the other places. He shouted there. He went near the shore and back. He shouted with joy, and Gilbert Peak returned the echo. He had conquered his fear of water. The experience had a deeper meaning for him. Only those who have known stark terror and conquered it can appreciate it. In death, there is peace, and there is terror only in the fear of death. Roosevelt knew it. So he said, all we have to fear is fear itself. Douglas had experienced both the sensation of dying and terror that fear of it can produce. The will to live somehow grew in intensity. At last, Douglas felt liberated. He was free to walk the trails and climb the peaks and to ignore or dismiss his fear. He did whatever he could. Today, let's do till here. Next day, we are going to discuss some very important questions and the extracts taken from the text. Om Shanti.